That is the responsibility. A PTI instructor is responsible to train new recruits. Now, the requirements of this task is to install discipline and to create teamwork amongst the troops, to do musketry training, to get him to a high level of fitness, drilling, basic map reading, and also to teach him about other functions in the South African Air Force.
And you proceed then to say that you went for a people pilot.
Okay, thank you. You can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. You proceed to indicate that you underwent a people pilot's course, one of 77 on Harvard's, and obtained wings on Impala aircraft. When was it?
The course started in 1977 at Denhotte, where we flew on, did a ground school and flew the Harvard, and then we continued flying at Air Force Base Langebaan on the Impala, where we concluded our wings course, and that was during that year, sir.
And you also indicate that you attended the officers forming course at SAF College in 1978. Can you take us through that?
So that is part of our path that our career takes in the Air Force. I've been on that course in 1978, where we were taught communication skills, some to do research, officership, leadership, management, problem solving, security awareness, military ceremonial protocol, military law, bit of civic education, which means you learn about government and how levels of government work. OHS, occupational health and safety, warfare history, air power, basics of air power, LOAC, LOAC, it's law on armed conflict, how you should apply your weapons in what is expected of you when you are in a fight or a battle or delivering weapons.
Thank you, General. And you went further then to complete the Rotary Operations Conversion course at AFB Bloomspruit on Alouette 3 helicopters in 1978. Any comment on that?
So that is, I was streamed. I was chosen to do helicopter flying. And then at that time, the operational or the conversion course was done at Air Force Base Bloomspruit, where I went through that course during that period.
And the next one was the course in respect of the Puma that you completed in 1979. Can you just elaborate a bit?
Yes, sir. Then was transferred to 19th Squadron at that time in Pretoria, Air Force Base Swartkop. And then I did my conversion course onto the Puma as a co-pilot. And then that was during the Bush War period. So we were operationally deployed up at the borders, and we flew quite a lot over that period.
Then in 1981, you say you left to join the family business, which was agricultural related.
Affirmative, sir. That was on demand of my father. So I left the SAF and I went to the former Western Transvaal, Northwest Province. And but we experienced a lot of a prolonged period of drought for 4 to 5 years. And I was contacted by some of my colleagues that at that time were flying in the Botswana Defence Force Air Wing. And they offered me a position there, so I gladly accepted that.
So, but for the drought, would have lost you in the South African Air Force, General?
Just repeat that question again, please, sir.
But for the drought that occurred in Botswana, would have lost you in the South African Air Force.
Yeah, that's. I think it worked out very nicely, sir. So some bad things happens that at the end of the day, it changes for the better.
Then you indicate that you joined this former Botswana Defence Force Air Wing in 1985 and remained there until integration in 1994. Can you elaborate?
Yes, sir. I went there and they also had Alouette helicopters, and I was very happy to fly Alouettes again. But we were flying quite a number of aircraft. We had a mixture of fixed wing and rotary wing, and I was fortunate to fly on both of the aircraft, or both types. And I was also fortunate to attend conversion courses overseas on new aircraft. But what was also fortunate is the fact that we did our South African Air Force courses during that period. And by the time when we were finished, I was qualified up to the rank of colonel on the developmental side.
And did the Botswana Defence Force have similar aircraft and or rotary wings as the South African Air Force then?
No, so it's only on the side of the rotary wing we had Alouettes and the BKs later on that we still utilize in the Air Force, that we have inherited when we came together, when we, after the first election, the TBVCs states integrated, and most of them had BK helicopters, and we still have them on our inventory.
General Malinga, when he gave evidence, he says during his integration he had to undergo an integration course. Was it a similar situation with yourself?
No, sir, because I've done, as I've said, I've done all the courses in the Air Force. Up to that point, it was not necessary.
And you say that during 1994 you were a colonel and the officer commanding of Air Force Base Mabatu. What did that entail, General?
So yes, we've just built a new base at the international airfield to the west of Mabatu that time, and that was about. We were there for a bit more than a year before integration, and I was in charge of all the aircraft, the maintenance, as the OC of officer commanding of the base, and the people and the administration.
And you further indicate that you were appointed as an officer commanding 95 Tactical Air Unit for exercise Southern Cross at Uppington and Postmasburg in 1995. What can you elaborate on that?
So, it was a joint exercise with all the services. It was quite a large exercise. We went through all the conventional requirements that we had to do or to exercise. The Air Force has put down a big base, the TAU, at a mobile temporary base at Uppington, but we had a helicopter admin area in Postmasburg. We had some of the army elements in Smitsdrift, and then the main battle took place at Luatla, which is still the place where we exercise our operations. But at that point in time, it was the last days of the F-1 combat aircraft fighter, as well as the Cheetah and the Impalas, and I had at that point in time 36 fighters on that tactical airbase, and we provided all the support on the admin side to the people, the medical, as well as the support to the aircraft.
During this exercise, where were you based, General?
I was based in Uppington then.
Then you proceed to indicate that you are appointed as the officer commanding Forward Air Force Command Post Centurion in July 1998. Can you elaborate on that?
So yes, we had in all the provinces we had Forward Air Force Command Post. That was to support the internal operations, mainly to support the SABC and other government departments with regard to relief operations, flood relief, drought relief, etc., etc. In Gauteng specifically, Centurion supported the anti-crime drive. We were on a daily basis deployed in the area. We had aircraft allocated to us, rotary wings as well as light fixed wings, to do reconnaissance. And the reconnaissance part had to look for chop shops. And the intelligence they gathered in conjunction with the SABC, we planned operations, and then we went in by road and by air to get the culprits.
When you say you are an officer commanding, what does that entail, that post of officer commanding?
Yes, sir, that is the most senior person that is responsible for all the roles and functions of that unit. So you are dedicated that post and that position, and you are responsible to act and do that, and on behalf of your chief and the chief of the Defence Force, and so at the end of the day, the Commander-in-Chief.
You further indicate that you are appointed as SSO Air Regional Task Force Central, August 1999, in the Joint Operations Division. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, sir. They have restructured the internal structures that they had. So we had to get smaller. So our inputs into the internal operations shouldn't have been that big anymore. And so they've started off with the Regional Joint Task Forces. In the central case, the one that I'm referring to, it included the Free State, Northwest Province, and Gauteng. So we were the Defence Force part supporting the police and other departments in internal operations.
And what is the SSO stand for?
The staff officer, in this case air. I gave all the air asset input.
And you further proceed to indicate also that you are appointed as Chief of Staff, Regional Task Force Central in May 2002 and promoted to Brigadier General. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, sir. Just before that, I've done the Joint Staff course. That is equivalent to the ENSP today. So I was then qualified on the developmental side to become Brigadier General. And then they started to, well, let me put it this way, the Chief of Staff at that time has resigned. He went on a package, and I was promoted into that post. And the responsibilities was basically the admin of that task force, to look at the personnel, the equipment, and all the plans, budget, and those things of that structure.
And where was General based?
Up at the SPESCOP, where the Space Forces and Joint Ops Division HQ currently is.
You subsequently acted as General Officer Commanding at RJTF Central from October 2002 until closure in February 2003. Can you elaborate on that, General?
Yes, sir. This is also part of the scaling down. It went a step further. and then the present or the GOC that we had was appointed to do something externally, and being in this restructuring effort, they decided that they will appoint me for that period of closing down. And then we established the Joint Ops HQ under the division, Level 2 division, Joint Ops division, Joint Ops HQ at Level 3, the operational level, and then the groups and the FACPs were replaced by a tactical HQ in all the provinces to support the government, the provincial governments, as well as the police in those provinces.
And why were you acting at that time?
I was acting because they've transferred the GOC, and some of the other personnel were also transferred, and I was on the closing down of that structure. I was in charge of that.
And you further indicate that you were appointed as Officer Commanding Air Force Command Post in February 2003. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, sir. That is on the Air Force side. That is our, we call it a command post, but it's our main ops room. And we are planning, executing, and monitor all air operations, including VIP tasks in that command post. So we work in collaboration with Joint Ops HQ, and this structure is attending to the air side of it.
And you further indicate that you were appointed Director Military Aviation Regulations and Policy in March 2005. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, sir. That is the directorate that's in charge of all policy and service bulletins, all the technical documentation related to aircraft systems, and we are on that directorate responsible to do the configuration management thereof, take policy as they come down from higher levels, DODs from the defense level, and implement it with an Air Force flavor into the Air Force. But it's all going through processes, and it's been put on systems, and there must be configuration control on it, and you keep data of timings to relook or revisit, to change the policies. So the configuration management thereof was the main responsibility. As I must just also say, I've referred to it, is that all your service bulletins coming in for the aircraft is also put through that system and distributed down to squadron levels. So it's all controlled through that system.
And thereafter, you are appointed as Director Education, Training and Development in January 2008. Can you just take us through that?
Sir, that is the directorate that was or still is responsible for basic military training. That's where you start off, where the instructors start, where I started with my CV, as well as the basic flying training. So the flying school down at Langebaan was under this director's control. All the developmental training, that is the courses that you do at a college, is part of this. And you also have to implement all the policies that's coming from higher levels to be on par with what is required from SNDF at corporate level.
You were further appointed as a Director Peace Support Operations at the Joint Operations Headquarters in August 2008. Can you elaborate, General?
Yes, sir. That directorate is on operational level responsible for all the external operations. In this case, what currently is happening, we have Ops Mistral in the DRC, we have Ops Cordite in Sudan, we had Vimbazela in Central African Republic. Operation Copper is also part of this. We support it through the Navy. But the main function is to plan the operations, implement, control and advise, and evaluate the support thereof. The larger part, the bigger part lies with the support. So the sustainment and maintenance of the operations outside. I can just say that Ops Mistral was quite a handful. We had a contingent HQ that we had to administer. A battalion HQ plus 4 companies that was in the North Kivu province in different locations. We still have an engineer unit there. We support them with by building roads and helping them with construction work. We have the AMET there, the Air Medical Evacuation Team. That's on the medical side that we have to support. We have an air unit there where we have helicopters. We have the SANEF SPEC unit that is based in Kinshasa. They are responsible to look at smaller groupings that support, gives aerodrome support, airport support, like fire, fighting, etc., and ambulances. And then there are also military liaison officers that we attend to, but they are all over Africa and sometimes outside the continent. Thank you, sir.
And the OP Corps, is it Kodait, the battalion in Sudan? What was it all about?
So yeah, that's a battalion that's supporting the UN in the Darfur province, is to keep the belligerents apart. That is it's quite a huge task, but it's the same Chapter 6 type of operation that we're executing there under the UN.
And the one at the Mozambique channel, was it maritime related?
It's mainly maritime related, sir. It was alluded to by all the Navy admirals, as well as Admiral Schulz. We are contributing, well, I'm talking now on behalf of the Air Force, but there's helicopters involved and maritime fixed-wing aircraft. But in this case, we were doing the support side of it from this directorate.
And why was it necessary to liaise with the UN? You mean in the United Nations?
Copper has got nothing to do with the UN. That is a SADC responsibility, or South African within a SADC environment. But the UN, all the United Nations operations is under the umbrella of the UN and controlled by them.
You further indicate that you were appointed as Director Human Resources Development in November 2011. Can you elaborate on that?
So I was, as the Director of Peace Support, I was in the Joint Ops Division. I came back to the Air Force, and this DATD directorate was changed to this Human Resources. So I came back to my old responsibility, my old job, if I could put it that way. And we did basically the same, except for the basic flying training. We were doing the same work, I was doing the same work there.
And lastly, you were appointed February 2013 as the Director Helicopter Systems. Can you just elaborate on what are your responsibilities and functions?
So yes, I'm very happy to be appointed there. We are responsible to provide combat-ready systems for execution of the SANDF mandate, Defence Force mandate. I'm referring to systems. The systems are the LUH, the A109 system, the Oryx medium transport utility system. It is the BK117 system, which is part of the light utility helicopters, although it's a different aircraft. It is the Roy Falk system, that's a combat support helicopter system, as well as the maritime links system. So we are responsible to train people to be able to man the aircraft, give them all their competencies. On the training side, we are collaborating with another directorate to get people trained and take them through their careers and give them experience to be able to operate on the system.
And it appears that you have received several medals during your career. The first one being the merit medal. Can you just explain a bit what it entails?
So, a merit medal is normally handed out to a person that does more than the normal. It's for distinguished services rendered. So it's a bit, you're more active and more focused on certain things, and you do a bit more than what you normally are wanted to do.
And when was it, General? Can you remember the year?
Now you're asking me. Now, I'm not good with those things, but I would think it was in the area of 1987.
Then you proceeded to get the commendation medal. The first medal, the merit medal, was from the former Bophuthatswana Defence Force. Am I correct?
Correct, sir.
And the second medal also was from the Bophuthatswana Defence Force. Was it all about commendation medal?
Yes, sir. The merit medal is a bit it's a higher order medal than a commendation. I got a commendation before I got a merit medal, so it's also service of a high standard.
Then you proceeded to receive the Pro Patria medal. What is it?
So that's a campaign medal that's for service in the operational area of the former Southwest Africa.
Then you have the Southern Africa medal that you also received. Can you explain?
So yes, that's for service in operations outside South Africa and Southwest Africa.
During which period was it, General, when you received the Pro Patria and the Southern African medals?
So that is in between 79 and 81.
And then you had also the Chumelo Ikatelaho medal. What is it?
That is for participation and support of operations inside and outside our country's borders for a period of longer than 55 days.
155 days?
55, sir. 55.
Was it also from the South African Defence Force?
This was the last medal that I've received, sir. That was 2-3 years ago.
And then you proceeded to receive the General Service medal. Can you just take us through?
Now this one was also in the former Bophuthatswana. There was a similar one in South Africa. That's for the suppression of terrorism or internal unrest.
Then the Independence medal, what is it?
So that was for the commemoration of the independence of Bophuthatswana.
And then you had the Unitas medal also that you received. Can you explain?
So that's to commemorate the unification of defense forces and armed forces in South Africa when we integrated.
And you also received the 10-year and 20-year good service medals. Am I correct?
That is correct, sir.
Were these given by the South African Defence Force or Botswana?
So no, this is South African Defence Force.
During this period that we have gone through, General, were you still flying or were you office bound?
So I was, most of the time I was flying. When I was the OC FACP, I did some of the taskings myself. And I was, the past few years, I was not operationally flying, but I'm fortunate enough to fly at the museum, which I currently still do. But that's on the older aircraft that's part of the museum.
General Bain and them, they said they stopped flying at about the age of 40. Are you still flying in operations or you've retired then?
Yes, I've also stopped when I was in the vicinity of 50 after I've left the LOHs. When we terminated the LOHs, then my operational days stopped basically. So I'm flying for pleasure and leisure at the museum.
Thank you, General. We may then go back to page 1 of your affidavit. Under the history of helicopters in the South African Air Force. I think from paragraph 1 to 14, it deals with the history of helicopters in the South African Air Force, starting with the Sikoskis. General Malinga has taken us through the history. Do you want to add or make any comments insofar as General Malinga's evidence in this regard have been?
So I can maybe just add to say that the arrowheads had a huge influence on the helicopter environment. We've operated them for, let me just be correct on that, for 45 years. And
I'm sorry, General. I'm struggling to hear you. Can you try and talk a bit louder and into the mic? I'm struggling to hear you.
all right, Mr. Chair, is this better? I can maybe just add on what General Molinga said, is that the arrowheads had a huge influence on our helicopter environment. That is basically where we started, and what we have today originated from those days. On those aircraft, on the arrowhead, we've established most of our concepts of operations and our SOPs. And then, because it was also utilized in the operational environment, the people sort of get to love the system. It was very much reliable. And then we changed when we acquired the Puma. The Puma helicopter served us also quite well. It was the cornerstone or the basis for the Oryx development. The Puma also, at most of its time in the Air Force bush operational experience, we utilized it very often and most of the times in operational area. A very reliable aircraft also. And I had the opportunity to fly the Oryx that was derived out of the lessons that we've learned on the shortcomings of the Puma. Our own industry built the Oryx. And that's really a platform, a machine to be very proud of. I've flown it the other day up in the mountains where you normally have, you don't have the power that you have closer to the coast. Hot and high conditions, and it performs magnificently. So that was a good thing that happened to the helicopter environment. And yes, to replace the arrowhead takes some doing, but I'm quite sure that this LOH is living up to that expectation. And yes, so I'll conclude with what I've said now.
Were you ever involved in the replacements of the Alouettes and the Pumas?
No, sir, I was never involved in that.
Then we then can proceed to the requirement for and description of the light utility helicopter on page 3 of your affidavit. Paragraph 15 relates to the budget cut, which had a major effect in respect of the helicopter fraternity. Are you able to comment on that paragraph, General?
So, all that I can say is all over the world, the military is moving to smaller numbers of equipment that can do more or better work, more specific work. With the arrowheads, at the end of the day, we procured 118 helicopters. And okay, that was quite a large number. But with the systems that we are acquiring now, a lot of the requirements, specialist requirements, are built into one platform. So we can do more with the aircraft. So yes, and this is part of the budget cut. The it was alluded to the GDP. That is not the same anymore. We have to work very skillfully with our money. So it is not easy to run systems with resources that's not as readily available as normal. But we are working smart now. So we're getting the requirements done. The task that we are doing with the aircraft. But like what was said is the Alouettes were old. They were being phased out. We experienced obsolescence. The aircraft spares and availability was not there anymore. And we needed an upgraded, more modern aircraft.
General Viljoen has taken us through the study that was launched and also the compilation of the staff target. And that deals with paragraph 17, 18, 19, and 20 of your statement. Am I correct, General?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Do you have anything to add on the explanation given and the background given by General Viljoen in respect of the Project Flange?
Sir, no, I don't have first-hand knowledge. What I know about the projects and the stages is what I've learned during this commission. So I would not elaborate on that.
General Viljoen has indicated that he is still being a reservist. He still works under yourself. What task is he implementing under yourself?
Colonel Viljoen rather is still part of the project. The project has not been handed fully over to the Air Force. So it is, as was mentioned by him, there are a few outstanding OT&E, operational testing and evaluation aspects outstanding, and he is attending to that on my behalf.
Now, on page 5 of your affidavit, paragraph 21, you refer that there were 30 A109 LUH helicopters which were delivered in, is it in 2005, am I correct?
Yeah, they started the delivery in 2005, and the last one was delivered in September 2009, Mr. Chair.
I think you will later take us through what is the current numbers left of the 30 that were delivered. But let's now deal with the roles and capabilities. On page 5, paragraph 23, you indicate that the primary role of the SANDF is to prepare itself in order to deter any external hostilities. Now, insofar as your position is concerned, can you take us through what that role entails?
So that is, as was also explained by all the admirals and generals, is we are acquiring capabilities to support the primary role. Now, the primary role is to defend the borders of the country, sovereignty, and keep our people safe. In the helicopter world, like I've said, we have a balanced system or systems where we have utility, we have the maritime, we have the combat helicopters in conjunction and in support of other arms of service. We are supporting the people, in the case of the army, trooping, hot extractions, close air support on the combat side, evacuation, medevacs, casevacs of people. And on the maritime side, we are an extension of the platform to give them a better capability, because we are getting elevated. Remember, it was mentioned when I explained air power that elevation and range and speed gives you more flexibility and air power. So, yes, sir. So that is in the primary role. But on the helicopter side, as we sit here, we are utilizing our capabilities on the secondary role also, or in the secondary role. Basically the collateral value that we have on the system. I must refer to the peace support operations. Now I'm talking about helicopters in general, not only the LOH. Maybe I should first say that the LOH and the Oryx can do the same work. They've got the same capabilities. But the Oryx is just a bigger aircraft. It can do double the work. But now look at the cost again. If there's no need for a smaller, or if there's a need for a smaller aircraft, smaller task, you utilize this LOH. What also is important is the fact that we are doing our training on the LOH. That's just where the chopper orientation starts. And that is done by the LOH helicopter. We are planning also to utilize it more externally. I maybe just should quickly refer to paragraph 25.1. We are doing work, as earlier was alluded to, in support of the police services in the maintenance of internal stability in support of other services of the SANDF, as was explained, outside the primary role, not only combat and fighting, but we are all supporting them in other roles also, communication flights, etc. Assisting both local and foreign government departments in accomplishing their tasks and or missions such as support in the maintenance of regional stability and the rendering of aid. We are doing some work sometimes for DIRCO, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, especially when dignitaries are coming over to South Africa. In the case of the visit of the President Obama, we supported the police with helicopters to move police protection around. Then, like I've said, in crime prevention, we are very much involved there. I've mentioned foreign affairs, that's not correct, it's DIRCO, and then in rescue missions and mountains terrain. Further on, I will also allude to all the capabilities that is required, that was part of the URS that the helicopter should do or must do. So that all forms part of the collateral value. But very important that I must mention is the fact that it's our current trainer. And it's a high technology, advanced technology helicopter. So in the basic mode, we utilize it for the basic training. And then on the computer systems, we are also training people to get or to be better adjusted to fly the bigger platforms like the Roy Falk, the Lynx, and the Oryx. What is also important to mention is the trainers, the simulators that we have. We have the simulators in Bloemfontein where our training still takes place. And we have the cockpit procedural trainer, which makes it more cost effective, that you take your people through that to do training. And you've got your computer-based training that you also do, where you learn the systems and how the computer works. It's not necessary to start up the real machine. And that's also for the technical people. So this new asset that we acquired gave us that opportunity to introduce more advanced systems that we need in these days.
Now, in respect to training, if I can refer you to page 112 of the bundle. It is part and parcel of the presentation that you gave us, General. May I proceed, Chairperson? Now, if you look at page 112, it indicates the Pilates aircraft, the A109LUH and the Oryx. Now, are you also following the three-tier system, in terms of the wings craft?
So you can basically say that is a three-tier system. All the pilots in the Air Force starts off with the PC-7, where they do the initial training. And then on the helicopter side, we take them to the LUH to do the basic helicopter training. That's only to fly the helicopter and get away with helicopter aerodynamics, etc., etc. And then from there, we take them over to the more advanced machines, or bigger machines rather, I can't say advanced, bigger machines like the Oryx, where they get the co-pilot operational training conversion course. So that comes about to the third part of it. Then we bring them back again to the LUH after they've gained a bit of experience as a co-pilot on the Oryx and been exposed to operations. We bring them back to the LUH again to do the operational course on the LUH. And when they finish there, they are now commanders and they can do operations on that aircraft. And then they do a tour on that LUH. And from there, we take them to Oryx as commander tour. They do a bit of training to become a commander, but they've done all the basics. It's just an hour period that they have to fly to get the system under their belts again. And then from there, we take them either to the Roy Volk. They could stay with the Oryx. We take them to the Roy Volk if the need is there, or we take them to the Lynx, the maritime helicopter.
And before the A101 LUH was acquired during the SDP process, which helicopter was used in its place?
We were still at the PC-7, and then we made use of what we call ASD, alternate service delivery, where we had outsourced and made use of civilian company to train our people. And from there, we took them to the Oryx. But that's very expensive because the bases were laid on that ASD, but then on the Oryx, we had to do the military part of it. So that did not work out. So we changed our way of doing the training.
And what are the advantages of the simulators, General?
There are certain competencies that is basically very procedural. Like instrument flying, where you have to go through procedures to be able to do that task, to execute that. So instead of being in a platform that runs at a certain amount of hours, rand per hours, which is very expensive, you put them on this simulator to do that training. So they get it under their belts, and it's easier for them when they get onto the platform itself to apply that those procedures. But it's not only for that. It's also emergencies that you could not introduce when you're doing training, that you can exercise and practice emergencies on the simulator that you can't do in the real world.
I think in paragraph 27, you indicating how the instructors were trained on the LUH, and that then was transmitted to the SAA Force in terms of training instructors on the LUH. Can you take us through that?
Mr. Chair, I would like just to make a correction here. In my statement, I was referring to one course, which is not true. The initial training of the pilots and technicians were all done in South Africa by the company, the OEM instructors, but we had 2 courses of 4 pilots each on the pilot side, and we had 2 courses of 8 technicians each on the technical side. So these people were then trained, and they were instructors, and they are now teaching the other people. So they were the core group to be taught, and now they are doing the instruction for the other people.
You say it was a the trainer kind of training. Then paragraph 28, you indicate that peacetime training for operational missions is done under all weather conditions. Can you elaborate on that?
That is one of the requirements that we had for the LOH, and the advantage that we have with the LOH, which we did not have with the LOHET. It's fully IFR compliant to all the requirements, and in any weather we can train. And that is basically if you are flying in other parts of the continent, like the equator, and where we are currently busy in Goma. You need to meet up with the adverse weather condition. So this is most important, to do the training on this aircraft on a cheaper platform to be able to do that work there. The other thing is also, and coming back to the computer-based trainer and a procedural trainer, you can also do your night vision NVG competencies, not the full competency, but you can go through the procedures in a simulator, and this is a good platform to start off with. And also on the LOH, we are doing NVG flying, and up in the DRC, it's very frequently used, that competency. I can just mention, and it should come with the operations, Mr. Chair, is that it's the end of 2011, beginning 2012, some of our troops, 14 of them, were wrongly dropped by another contingent, a helicopter contingent in the DRC. And they dropped them amongst rebels. And then there were negotiations, and the rebels said to us, listen, if you don't take them out within the next 2 or 3 hours, there's going to be trouble. So the 2 Oryxes flew under those NVG conditions, and we picked up our troops and we brought them to safety. So that is very important. And if you install that competency at a younger age or stage of the career, the better it is.
The LUH which we acquired, the 109, so has got the capabilities to be used during night time?
So, very much so. It's got all the instruments and capabilities to do night flying.
Now, can we just move to paragraph 29, where you speak about the specific roles and capabilities of the LUH, and the first one you deal with is the land what operations.
Mr. Chair, that is also taken out of the URS, and that was the requirement. Now, the landward operations is not only in support of the Army. We sometimes support the Navy in landward operations. You won't believe it. But like it is utilized in border patrol. We all know that there's an Operation Corona established to protect our borders, where we are deploying companies of the Army to do border protection. And these helicopters are very suitable to support them to do trooping, resupplying, communication flights in that area, or a reaction force for that matter.
In respect of the border, I think evidence has been laid that previously the border control was done by the South African Police Service, and now it is done by the South African Defence Force. Am I correct?
Our border control, to the best of my knowledge, has always been done by police, but the border protection, the control is at the control point. But the protection was our responsibility, and it was taken away. Now it's back with us again.
So the LUH is utilized in respect of border patrols.
So that is the most suitable aircraft or helicopter platform to be utilized to support the border patrols. Yeah.
Now the third one is the cargo transport. Can you take us through that?
It's a utility helicopter, Mr. Chair. It's just lighter loads that it can take the Oryx, but normally it's much cheaper than operating the Oryx. And if we don't have to take heavy loads, so you utilize the LUH.
Cargo slinging and hoisting?
cargo slinging and hoisting. The slinging part is you under the belly of the helicopter. You normally have a net, or you hook some load to a cable, and then you transport it to a place that you can't reach by road, or you can do vertical replenishment on ships with this. So you take load, whatever it is, from one place in undrivable conditions to other places, and you drop it there.
And the casualty evacuation function, can you take us through that?
Well, just on the hoisting side, just the hoisting, I must just mention, I think Colonel Viljoen referred to the 4x4 fraternity where they use winches. Now, this is basically an airborne winch where we take people on the rescues from out of the mountains, up from the sea. We pick them up, and it works on a winch, a motor, that you can hoist the people up if you can't reach the land or the sea, the area by the helicopter itself. Casualty evacuation, sir, Mr. Chair, is that that is normally you have that whenever the ground troops are involved in any operation, and that's a quick way of bringing your casualty out of the operational area to a place where they could be cared for, and that we do. That is also one of our secondary roles that we often execute is casualty evacuation. We even do it for other departments from time to time.
How frequent do you do such evacuations, General, casualty evacuations?
It's basically in the operational area where our command post are doing those tasks. I don't always get all the information on that, but whenever your troops are deployed on the Mozambican border, or whatever, if you've been bitten by a snake or scorpion, whatever, we do it very frequently. I can't tell you 2 per day or whatever, but it must be there. You must have that to protect your people.
And the communication flights aspect?
Communication flights is to take people from one spot to the other. If you need to take a general to the operational area, we take them there. We do internal communication flights to go for exercises. If there's a need to take people to a place. When we were deployed on the Lesotho border, the best way of getting there for visits by the minister, whoever, it's done by helicopter. So that's part of the communication flight.
The command and control, can you take us through that?
Command and control, I would think, is the most important part of this aircraft, where you normally you can do it yourself if you command and control your own aircraft, but when you are doing trooping in support of the army, you normally have a army person within the helicopter, and then he controls his troops on the ground. And being elevated in a good position, you can easily adjust the movement of your troops. But this is a very important aspect of this aircraft.
So it can be used in a supporting role of the troops being the army wing?
Yeah, that is our primary function, is the army, but we can do it, we can even control our own aircraft. If you have to go into a danger zone where there's enemy, with your combat support helicopter supporting you, keeping the heads down, etc., this aircraft can command and control this move of yours to get safely into the area.
The forward airborne controlling, what is that, General?
That's almost similar than command and control, but that's when you deliver weapons. If a Hawk or a Gripen comes in, you could support them by doing forward air control, by telling them, listen, the troops are there, don't shoot there, shoot this side, or whatever the case may be, but they're controlling fire from other aircraft. And even your Rooivalk.
The next one is the search and rescue functionality. Can you take us through that?
Search and rescue, that also often happens. Whenever an aircraft goes down, we are responsible as part of SASAR to execute certain duties, responsibilities. And when they realize that an aircraft hasn't reported or whatever, then we go and look for that aircraft. It's planned, and in a certain way they've got their ways of SOPs to do the search. On the rescue side, if you got hold of or spotted your position, or wherever a person has fallen off a cliff or hurt himself or fallen off a yacht in the sea, then you retrieve that person by means of a hoist. And that often happens. As a matter of fact, on Saturday, a student, learner, fell off a cliff in the Blyderrivier port area. And then we recovered the body out of a mountain on Saturday. Unfortunately, passed on, but we recovered the body.
And in respect of the disaster relief?
That video clip that we've shown, the disaster relief specifically in Mozambique, we've done it very often. I was the very first person after the election in '94 to be deployed as the MAYOT on-the-ground commander of a disaster relief operation there, or a flood relief for that matter. We are, I think, world famous for that. That clip of the lady giving birth to the baby girl. Even today, that lady, the mother, receives a UN grant to support her. But that's the work we are doing. And not only that, it's also fires, veld fires, bushfires, whatever that we support.
And you refer also to special operations function. Can you take us through that?
Yes, that's where we operate with special forces or people that's going to places that other people mustn't know about, clandestine operations. We sometimes do that. It all depends on the situation.
And how much capacity, General, are you able to indicate that the LUH can carry in terms of persons?
So it's 2 plus 6, so it can take 8 people, but your passengers, troops are normally 6.
And you further indicate that it can be used for urban operations.
I'm basically referring to our support to the SAPS and operations that we get to Nano, Kwele, those things that we fly in urban areas. And because it's a twin aircraft, we are capable and allowed to fly over urban areas, so it's not dangerous for the people on the ground.
The VIP transport function?
In some cases, we fly our heads, our chiefs. We sometimes fly dignitaries from overseas that is required by DERCO. Aircraft could do that type of flying.
Maritime operations function?
So basically the same. It's just from the ship over water. I've explained communication flights, Mr. Chair. Boarding party, why saying boarding party is taking people from shore to the ship, or taking them back to put them onto the ship. Hydrographic support, that's a surveillance, the Protea and those types of ships that move around, and we can support them in their task. We could also, as from the land side, rescue from ships. And I can maybe refer to the Oceanos incident that happened a few years ago, where we basically saved 255 people, if I'm not mistaken. And after the last few persons, I don't think it was 10 minutes, then the ship sank. So we brought them ashore, and they were saved. I think that was an outstanding performance from the helicopters. Now, at that time, we did it with RXs, but we didn't have LUHs, but the LUHs also could be used in that regard.
And you have indicated that it can also do, when you talk about vertical replenishment, what is that?
Yes, so that's basically to take load from land to ship or back to land, is to replenish. Without landing on a ship, you could put it down with a cargo sling on the ship.
And you say it can do also search and rescue over the sea. To what extent, when you compare it to the Lynx, the maritime helicopter?
So the Lynx is basically not, the function of the Lynx is not only, or it's not been procured for that function per se, but it can do it. But the LUH, because it's a twin, you can put equipment on to make it seaworthy, and it all depends on your range that you can operate into the water to go and rescue people. So it fulfills the same role as the other helicopters. All of them can do this task.
You've already mentioned about the Special Forces deployment. Thank you, General. Maybe let's then go to page 8 and deal with the performance of the SDPP in terms of the constitutional mandate. And you indicate that since the delivery of the LUH, it has can be measured against the SAF user requirement specification. I think General Colonel Viljoen has spoken at length about the URS. Are you saying that the LUH is compliant with those user requirements?
It is compliant, Mr. Chair.
But sadly, you indicate that there has been 3 accidents and the LUHs are down to 27. Can you just take us through that?
Yes, sir, I can. Mr. Chair, we normally, well, not normally, that's practice that we train our people according to a curricular syllabus for different competencies, and they are tested, and we make sure that that person is applied safely on that aircraft. We had those accidents, which was very unfortunate, but like I've said, from management side, we are doing and we're implementing from time to time new, not measures, but training exercises to make flying more safely. Whenever we leave a person or task him to do a task, then we are sure that that person can execute that task. But you also have the human factor, and it is also the responsibility of that pilot, whenever he is applied in a role or task or asked to do things that he is not comfortable with, to decline it. So it's not nice to talk about this, but we had those accidents, and I can just say that in the case of the one accident that took place over the Woodstock Dam in KwaZulu-Natal, the Board of Inquiry finding was it was due to human error. Then we had an accident in Potchefstroom where the pilot did a very hard landing, and that was also due to human error. And then we had an accident in Ballito, just north of Durban, where the initial indication was that it was due to tail rotor failure or malfunction. But the case is still pending as there is litigation involved. So I can't, it's basically sub judice. I can't reveal anything on this one further. But like was mentioned by my colleague General Bain, we are belonging to a user group through the OEM. So there are a lot of people flying the 109. So all these incidents that take place and possible technical problems, we are referring to the user group. And through the OEM, they are sending back corrective actions, etc., to fly the platform safely. So this was mentioned to them. And then they came back and said, all right, check this, check that, and what the problem could be. But like I've said, I'm not going to reveal on the outcome, but that's the way we are operating those aircraft. We inspected our fleet. Then I can just say that in the case of the first aircraft at the Woodstock Dam, 3 people passed on, got killed. That were crew, South African Air Force members. Then the Kruger National Park one that was on the 30th of March this year, where 5 people got killed. That board is still on the go. Although in May, the Technical Review Board released the aircraft technically to service again. But that review board, or the Board of Inquiry, is still continuing. I can just say that there are 540 A109 aircraft flying worldwide, of which 80 to 100 are LUHs, the specific one that we are flying. South Africa, Sweden, Nigeria, Malaysia, New Zealand, and Algeria are operating the LUHs. And at this point in time, I'm not aware of any fatal accident experienced by specifically the user group, the LUH countries. And therefore, I can basically confirm that the design of the LUH is sound.
So the 3 LUH which were in accidents, they are not repairable, General?
Yes. The 3 are, the Balito one is not repairable, the KZN one over the dam is not repairable, the Kruger National Park one is not repairable. The one that did the hard landing at Potchefstroom is repairable.
Thank you, General. And in respect of the exercises and operations, paragraph 32, you say that the LUH was successfully deployed in exercises like winter solstice and Air Force training exercise. Can you just take us through that?
Winter solstice is an Air Force exercise. And we have successfully participated in more than one winter solstice exercise, when it proved to be a very usable aircraft in the role. That the reasons why we acquired it for the roles, it's been applied very, very well.
Is it an annual exercise or was it a once-off?
No, it's an annual exercise, sir.
Then the second one is the Young Eagle, a joint exercise with the Army. Can you take us through that?
So yes, the Army has more than one exercise, like Saboka, Young Eagle, that they also are executing to get their forces prepared. And in most of the Army operations, our aircraft, specifically the helicopters, are supporting. Not only with the casualty evacuation, but part of the trooping, the command and control, as was explained earlier on when I explained those options.
So the Young Eagle and Sebuka, they are also annual exercises that you do jointly with the Army?
Yes, sir. Sometimes it's postponed or whatever, but it's an annual exercise or exercises.
The Good Hope and Golfino exercise, the SADC exercise. Can you take us through that?
Yes, the Golfino one was quite a large exercise where we had different forces coming from the SADC countries. And some of the people entered at Uppington, and then we also got down to Luatla, and our aircraft, the LOA specifically, were utilized in that exercise. The Good Hope one, let me just get to my reference. The Good Hope one, I'm sure that the Good Hope one is in conjunction with the Navy. I'm not very sure of that one, but I'm sure it's in collaboration with the Navy.
And you also referred to Operation, is it Shield?
Shield was also the exercise, the practice for Kwele, the Soccer World Cup.
Chairperson, I see it's about 11:30. Maybe it may be the opportune time just for a tea break.
I think we'll adjourn for about 15 minutes or so. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I think he must just take us through that.
I don't know whether in a little operation shield.
See, one. So this way can go refer to this.
Yeah.
You must just take us
Yeah,
through
you refresh it.
the period and the years. Hey.
We're moving very fast, you see, General.
good. Really quickly. Hello? Yes, can you hear us? Are you there? All right. Understand what have they said, something like that, you know. Yes. Oh shit. Bounce it. Alright. Is the lighting not too harsh? I swear.
You haven't started.
Then
When you no delete that.
Sipo, that is too harsh. Just. They're coming to us, ne? Just be ready. And what is harsh, ne? Bounce it a bit. Huh? Yeah, I can hear you. No feedback for it. I don't want feedback, please. Yeah, I was getting a bit of feedback. Yeah, I can hear myself, you see. They're coming to us. They're with us now. Yes, the Arms Procurement Commission resumed this morning after a delay since Monday morning. You'll recall that incident where there was flooding into the offices of the principals as well as the venue where the hearings normally take place. It resumed this morning just after 10 o'clock. And as you said earlier, that Brigadier General Peter Berger was supposed to take the stand. Actually, he has already started testifying. And what has been interesting so far about his testimony was him confirming the 3 accidents that have since taken place since the acquisition of those 30 light utility helicopters from that Italian manufacturer, Augusta. He confirmed to the commission that there were 3 accidents. You'll remember that one of those devastating accidents took place at the Kruger National Park, where a number of South African National Defence Force members were killed. There were also 2 other accidents, one taking place in the northwest in Potchefstroom, as well as one in KwaZulu-Natal in Balito. The one at Potchefstroom is still under investigation, as well as the accident in Balito. He told the commission that there's still an inquiry underway to determine the cause of that accident. So far, he hasn't really said much except for the confirmation of those 3 accidents. When the commission got underway this morning, they focused on his CV, the several awards that he has received. He also told the commission that he started serving in the South African Air Force since the 70s. Actually, at one stage, he worked in the former Bophuthatswana. You still remember when we still had the homeland system here in South Africa. So for most of today, it will actually be Brigadier General Peter Berger on the stand, who will be talking a bit more about the utilization of these Augusta helicopters. As you know, that there's a lot of controversy. Some of the whistleblowers saying that we acquired these arms, but they are being underutilized. Some of them are being stored. You'll know that this relates to the taxpayers' money. I mean, it relates to you and I having to pay for these arms as well. The commission will resume in a short while. We are currently have taken a 15-minute short break, and when it resumes, General Berger will continue testifying. He will also be talking a bit more about the issue of cost. What are the projected costs in the future in terms of operating these helicopters that remain? You will recall that only 27 remain because the 3 have been damaged. Sure.
Is it? I know this job is unpredictable. You don't know when the tea break is going. Sometimes you have to be quick. Yeah. No sleeping.
spoken at length about the URS. Are you saying that the LUH is compliant with those user requirements?
Well, not normally. That's practice that we train our people according to a curricular syllabus for different competencies, and they are tested, and we make sure that that person is applied safely on that aircraft. We had those accidents, which was very unfortunate. But like I've said, from management side, we are doing and we're implementing from time to time new, not measures, but training exercises to make flying more safely. Whenever we leave a person or task him to do a task, then we are sure that that person can execute that task. But you also have the human factor, and it is also the responsibility of that pilot, whenever he is applied in a role or task or asked to do things that he is not comfortable with, to decline it. So it's not nice to talk about this, but we had those accidents, and I can just say that in the case of the one accident that took place over the Woodstock Dam in KwaZulu-Natal, the Board of Inquiry finding was it was due to human error. Then we had an accident in Potchefstroom where the pilot did a very hard landing, and that was also due to human error. And then we had an accident in Balito, just north of Durban, where the initial indication was that it was due to tail rotor failure or malfunction. But the case is still pending as there is litigation involved. So I can't, it's basically sub judice. I can't reveal anything on this one further. But like was mentioned by my colleague General Bain, we are belonging to a user group through the OEM. So there are a lot of people flying the 109. So all these incidents that take place and possible technical problems, we are referring to the user group. And through the OEM, they are sending back corrective actions, etc., to fly the platform safely. So this was mentioned to them, and then they came back and said, all right, check this, check that, and what the problem could be. But like I've said, I'm not going to reveal on the outcome, but that's the way we are operating those aircraft. We inspected our fleet. Then I can just say that in the case of the first aircraft at the Woodstock Dam, 3 people passed on, got killed. That were crew, South African Air Force members. Then the Kruger National Park one that was on the 30th of March this year, where 5 people got killed. That board is still on the go. Although in May, the Technical Review Board released the aircraft technically to service again. But that review board, or the Board of Inquiry, is still continuing. I can just say that there are 540 A109 aircraft flying worldwide, of which 80 to 100 are LUHs, the specific one that we are flying. South Africa, Sweden, Nigeria, Malaysia, New Zealand, and Algeria are operating the LUHs. And at this point in time, I'm not aware of any fatal accident experienced by specifically the user group, the LUH countries. And therefore, I can basically confirm that the design of the LUH is sound.
So the three LUH.
Yes. The three are the Balito Dam is not repairable. The Kruger National Park one is not repairable. The one that did the hard landing at Potchefstroom is repairable.
KG? No, we never break today.
just confirm that it's still on the rules? General, can I request you to speak directly into the mic because Judge Musa and I are having difficulties of hearing exactly what you're saying. Can you just try and speak slowly and clearly and into the mic? Because we're battling to hear what you're saying.
Is that better, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
And floods internet.
Mr. Chair, I will refer to the standing operations and explain what they're all about. Then I will go back to the back page where at page 100 to explain more detail about the operation. Now, Chariot is a standing operation for firefighting and floods internally. If ever we are tasked to do operations in this regard, it's referred to as Ops Chariot. Corona, as I've referred to, is the Army border protection, but it's not only Army, it's in support of the Army, all the services are involved. Folk is supporting a National Parks Board in nature conservation. Op Horizon and Rhino is anti-rhino poaching operation. Op is SIPU, is assistance to the presidency. We all know that Kwele was the Soccer World Cup. And then Op Prosper is in support of the SABC, of the South African Police Services.
Take us to the detail that you say you'll take the Commission through on page 100 of the bundle in respect of the exercises and operations, the period that they took place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The very first one is Chariot, the firefighting and flood relief. There you have the dates in September, November 2010. We were doing firefighting in the Roosendaal area. That's basically in a command and control role. In January 2012, we had a floods at Hoedspruit in that area, where our base was also severely damaged by the floods. November 2012, we did firefighting in Kimberley. And then some of the floods, it was a small flood that took place in January, February in Mozambique, just across the border that we participated in. Op Cordite, we only supported as an exercise when we do mobilization for Op Cordite in Sudan. Op Corona is the border protection, and there we have different dates from 2010 to 2012, where we did Visrekkies, VIP of communication floods, and trooping, mostly trooping. Again, Corona, we were involved at Mikado also. Op Edelvolk, 2010, October 2010, we supported the game census at Hoedspruit, and again in 2011, game census we've done. Winter solstice, that is our...
Can you explain what is a game census?
It's like a census for people. It's the count of the different species in that area to be able to manage it better, depending on the situation, the drought, the grazing fodder that they have, etc.
Was it private or public function?
So that is basically in support of ourselves, these two. We have game, not farms, but we were part of nature conservation. So we have game camps at Makado as well as at Woodspruit. May I continue, Mr. Chair? Winter solstice, these two annual exercises, Eastern Cape, as well as in Kimberley, the second one. Young Eagle normally takes place at Bloemfontein, at a brug. Golfino, I've referred to, that was a SADC exercise. Up Horizon, anti-poaching, rhino poaching, it is mainly in the Kruger National Park, but we are getting involved in down south in the Eastern Cape also. ESIPO, that is VIP transport for the presidency, not necessarily the president himself. Okay, Rhino, the op name has changed now to Rhino, and that's in that period that we participated there, and that's also in March that the accident took place. Then we also were involved in Kwele, very much so. Kwele, we flew over 275 hours, and that was quite a useful operation to see whether the system operates as we wanted to operate. And then also Shield, that was the forerunners for Kwele. And then Prosper is in support of the SAPS on those occasions. August to September, we participated in several operations, same with the May-December 2011 one. So that concludes my operational part.
Thank you, General. Now, in respect of the accident, General, you indicated that in one of the accidents, the pilot and 3 members passed away. Am I correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
And in respect of the other 2, was there also loss of life?
The only other one was the one in the Kruger Park where 5 people got killed. So it was 2 crew plus 3 soldiers, Special Forces soldiers, and in the case of the dam it was 3 Air Force people.
Whilst you are constrained in elaborating in respect of the other accident, but you indicate that it relates to the error on the part of the pilot.
On the Woodstock Dam one, the finding was human error. So with the accident in Potchefstroom, human error. The board on the KNP, Kruger National Park accident, the only outcome there is the release to the technical release to service, but the other part of the board is not finalized yet.
And any remedial steps recommended or taken after these accidents?
So I've mentioned, Mr. Chair, that we are continuously upgrading our curricula and syllabi. If the board reveals certain aspects that may be neglected, then we introduce measures to counter that.
I think it was indicated during evidence, I think of June, that in respect of accidents of these aircrafts or rotary wings, the aircrafts are grounded until the investigation is completed. Is it the same process that was followed in respect of these accidents?
Yes, sir, that is true. You either stop fly or you ground. In the case of an accident, normally you ground the aircraft till the board is finalized or not, or the technical report of given. Then according to that, we have got strict rules and policy in that regard.
And in respect of the user group that you have already alluded to, Are you aware of any accidents in respect of the members of the user group of the LUH?
I've mentioned, sir, that I'm not aware, and I'm speaking under correction. I'm not aware at this point of any serious accidents that took place.
And speaking of the user group, General, what are the advantages of having these user groups as part and parcel of those who have purchased the same LUH?
It was, Mr. Chair, it was very well elaborated to by General Bain that the more people participating in this user group structure, the more information you get on the system. If they experience or discover any problems with the system, or they are having maybe new advanced plans or suggestions for that matter, they are referring it to the OEM, and then it's distributed to all the other people. And there's also a yearly meeting that the user groups go to, where we discuss all the matters and issues and aspects pertaining that system. All the problems that we've experienced, not only with possible faults, but also with support, turnaround time of spares, etc.
At paragraph 35, page 8 of the bundle, you mentioned that of the remaining 27 LUHs, a couple of them await maintenance under regular maintenance programs. And then you say the supply chain management for the procurement of parts is lengthy. Can you elaborate on that?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would then just say quite a lot on this whole situation. That will include the answer maybe of this. It was referred to by General Bain that the medium-term expenditure plan is not conducive to operate all your systems fully. So that requires them to work on austerity measures. Now, Director Heli also had to implement austerity measures. So we prioritized our situation and our systems. Remember, I've referred to the fact that we are operating 5 different helicopters. And then we decided that our focus would be on the Oryx platform. The reason for that is that we have ordered commitments for the Oryx, and that we would focus to get the Oryx system to an accepted level. Now, going with this, at this point in time, we have luckily enough crews to do what we have to do, what we've envisaged, and what we've planned for. Now, at this point in time, there is no need to get people into the system of the Oryx, for instance. We have enough crews there. Now, the LUH, as I've mentioned, is our trainer aircraft. So, when they're finished and there's enough crews with the LUH, and there's a need for Oryx crews, we transfer the people over to the Oryx system, and then for filling those vacancies and be trained to operate the system. Now, what we did is, we did transfer some people to other systems, but we kept a core group of instructors and people with the LUH. The reason for that is, there was a change in policy with regard to our officers, and specifically pilots, that the people must obtain degrees, developmental training. And that gave us some space and leeway to shift our courses a bit to the right. So there was no immediate need to do courses on the LUH specifically. So, and that gave us also the opportunity then to limit the budget of the LUH. The next round, we will again evaluate the situation, and then we change our plans accordingly. But now that gave us a bit of leeway. And some of the members that was not caught up in this arrangement of the degree, the initial start of the first year, they have already done their planning, but they are studying. We let them continue as part of the austerity measures with the PC-7. So they are kept there. It's a cheaper platform to fly, the same as with combat systems. They're flying and keep their currency on that aircraft. Now, for the LOH system, we have budgeted to have a contract with the OEM in place. And then, as was mentioned by General Bain also, it normally through the year funds become available. Why I say funds become available? For instance, some of the spares could not be returned or sent up and be paid within the fin year. Then we manage that, we monitor that, and we take that money away, and we send that spare up at a later stage, and we take that money to utilize in the systems that we need it for. So we have budgeted for this system to maintain the integrity of the system, is to have the contract, to have 71 hours rather, to run the engines and do some calendar-based servicing until we are fortunate enough to receive some money. Now, the accident of the 30th of March was the end of the fin year. That ordered us basically to stop flying, ground the aircraft. But the grounding was lifted in May. Now the contract is in place, so if we have money, we can buy spares. And to come back to the question that was asked by my evidence leader, Mr. Chair, was the long delay of spares. Now with the contract in place, it's easier to quickly order, and then the process is in place to bring spares in. But it takes some time. Some of the spares are from overseas, and they've got their recess times, some holidays, etc., but you have to plan around it. The other problem that we have with our serviceability of the aircraft was that we've changed, or the user group, the OEM, changed the service schedule of the system. A more cost-effective service system, but it entails administrative work that had to be redone. So some of the physical servicings that's been done, where they change maybe spare parts and filters, that stays the same, but the admin process has changed now. Now I have to go through the whole process again. So that delayed the serviceability of our aircraft. But that also gives us the opportunity that our pilots could do their developmental training, which they normally fall behind with in normal times when we operate them extensively. And this also gave us an opportunity, or the ground crew, to be more exposed to the serving schedules. So, sir, in the meantime, the funds became available. We have aircraft serviceable. We are working hard to get them serviceable. We have started to finalize instructor's course at 87 Helicopter Flying School in Bloemfontein. And we are also have started with the operational testing and evaluation finalization, as was mentioned by Colonel Viljoen. As our serviceability improves, we will expand on our force preparation of the people at the squadron, and hopefully by January, when we have to do those other courses to get the system flowing again, to get the pilots through, we will be in place to do what we have to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, General. The maintenance capability, do we have a local maintenance plant that is able to maintain the LUH system?
So yes, the OEM has an approved dealership, if I could call it that way, another structure, institution, that could provide that service. But the design of our service schedules is that most of the services we can do at the base. Now, with more exposure and experience of our own technicians, we can take most of the work out of the hands of the OEM that we have in place, that is in South Africa. So that's why I've mentioned also the servicing schedules. We are getting inputs by the user group on how to change certain things that's more cost effective. We would like to have longer periods between services, and we are working on that. But we have the capacity at the squadrons is enough to do what we have to do at the squadrons on our model that we're working on, and we have the deeper level servicing OEM at Bonobo.
In paragraph 36, you indicate the challenges that you're facing in respect of reduced flying hours, and this affects the opportunities for both air and ground crews to enhance their skills. Can you elaborate on that?
Mr. Chair, yes. With everything in life, the more you do it, the better you can do it. And I would like to see my people operate the system fully and to be able to put it to its full use. But with our measures that we've put in place by next year and after the OTE and OTE has been signed off to the system, we will be able to embark on that to fully apply the aircraft operationally. That is a problem at this point in time with the measures that we put in place, that the people are not exposed as they should be. But we've limited the numbers of people at the squadron, so next time or the next planning cycle we'll address that issue.
General Bain has indicated that you have been provided with more budget than himself. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. But I'm working all the time. That's in a lighter vein. No, sir. I've got 5 systems, and General Bain has got 2 systems. So that's why I've a bigger budget.
Now, in paragraph 37, you indicate about the necessary logistics support elements that have been provided, including facilities at the unit's basis and deeper level SAF agencies. Can you just elaborate on that?
Mr. Chair, yes. What we're trying to say here is the fact that what should have been done by the project to give the facility and to provide all the equipment and machinery and ground equipment to be able to operate the aircraft has been done. Latching onto this, the OEM is for deeper level services, but what we have to do at the squadrons, we can do with the equipment and the training that we've received.
So you further indicate that because of the limited numbers that you've purchased in terms of the LUHs, that limited also the capability for repairs to be done locally here. So 50% of the LUHs are they repaired overseas?
Mr. Chair, that is basically addressed by Colonel Viljoen, that whole issue around local repairs and the involvement of local industry. But it is also part of the defense review that we must go for the most cost-effective way of operating the system. And we are continuously looking into that. We have our engineers and General Pels's people to support us here. So that has been scrutinized thoroughly. So we're going for the cheapest, or most cost-effective rather, options.
Then in paragraph 8, you make a statement that the system was integrated in the South African Air Force without allocation of an operating budget. What do you mean by that, General?
Mr. Chair, I can just say, and it's since Admiral Green has started with his evidence, it was said that there was a way of sort of getting the money to operate. I'm not going to allude on that because I'm not so very au fait with the situation, but what normally happens is with a project, you get a certain amount of money to get the project going and to get it into service and to operate it with a spares package, etc., and General Bain also referred to that. We've got a similar situation, is that we bought the system or the platforms, but the backup was not sufficient, and we thought that the money that we could get out of the budget later on would be sufficient to operate, but that did not happen.
General, the fact that the air and ground crew could not get sufficient time to enhance their skills in respect of the flying hours, did that affect the reduction of their numbers, or you have retained their numbers?
In certain cases, we let them fly with the other systems that we took a few of them to pull them into the other system where we had vacancies. The others are doing courses, and there's a core group, as I've mentioned, that is now busy picking up on their competencies. But whenever the other people are coming back, they will do the training again to be, as I've explained before the accident, to be according to the curricula, trained up to a point, force prep, that they can safely operate the task they allocated.
Has that affected further recruitment of keen would-be pilots?
Mr. Chair, it was also explained by General Bain that we are, in this MTF, we have a bit of a difficult time. So we are cutting down on the numbers, but we don't stop with recruitment, we don't stop with training. I've mentioned that I've pushed my courses a bit to the right. There's a bit of a hold, but we're not stopping the process.
Has this reduction of flying hours led to the so-called grounding of any of the LUHs?
Now, you can't say grounding, Mr. Chair. It is a fact that we are limiting the flying. We've put austerity measures in place to keep the system integrity, and fortunately, we are receiving money now to continue. It was a bit of a hold-up, but we are going back to normal as we continue now.
We're not experiencing the so-called mothballing process.
So in this case, the 71 hours allowed us to run the engines, and that is a specification of the OEM that is sufficient to maintain the aircraft. And we are running the whole fleet. We are not putting aircraft away. I must also say that you can't have all the aircraft available at one time. We call it staggering. So you've got a program, we've got aircraft in service and aircraft operationally available. So we have now time to do all our staggering and to make our plans to have a proper system going in future.
Do you have sufficient pilots also to fly the LUH system?
At this point in time, Mr. Chair, we have sufficient pilots to do what we ordered to do.
Thank you, General. In paragraph 39, you indicate that despite all this, all the South African Air Force essential operational needs can be provided from a combination of the LUH and other resources such as the ORIX, but this is substantially more expensive to operate than the LUH. Can you elaborate on that paragraph, General?
So yes, as I've said, they are both utility helicopters. The one platform is just a bigger one. You can do more work at one time. And as we have done our planning, our austerity measures, we have limited also on our support to employment. So we are adjusting the whole situation to get through this period till we are in a position to continue normally.
So you're saying that the next year budget is giving you some form of relief to say that you'll be able at least to operate optimally at some stage?
Sir, Mr. Chair, the budget is basically for the MTF the same. But at this point in time, there is some inputs, if I could call it, interventions that gives me a better situation next year, that will lead to a better situation next year.
Thanks, General. Let us move then to the topic of utilization, I think, which is the main topic that you say you want to speak to. And paragraph 40 speaks about that to date, the LUHs have flown over 18,000 hours since entering service in 2005. And you say further that it was initially planned to fly 6,000 fleet hours per year, which given the build-up of the fleet would amount to approximately 40,000 hours to date. So you have flown almost half of the hours that were expected. Can you explain, General?
So yes, and it was also explained by Colonel Viljoen that you base your planning initially on an amount of hours per airframe. Our plan was to have to fly 200 hours per airframe per year, but remember now we've built up from 2005 till 2009. We haven't had all the aircraft at once, but the 40 is sort of in target. Yeah, that is fine. As we've said, because of the MTEF situation and a lot of other reasons, sometimes the stop fly, but mainly because of the austerity measures, we came up to 18,000 hours over this period. The 40 would have been the ultimate. Then it was a fully fledged operational budget with everything that you basically need monetary-wise.
And you indicate further that the hours flown allowed for 95% completion of the operational test and evaluation done at the units operating the aircraft with own air and ground crews. Can you explain that further?
So, the original project requirement, as was explained by Colonel Viljoen, those OT&E requirements, aspects have been handled. But as we went on with the evaluation, testing and evaluation, other 5 other items came to the fore that we've added to the aircraft system, like the observation system, the light, the guns, secure comms, and that is taking now time to finalize that. But the plans are well underway, and the process, for that matter, is at this point in time that I can almost call a date when I'll be finished. So we are just finalizing that. So we're almost finished with it.
So the 18,000 hours you're indicating on paragraph 40 includes hours flown by all the 27 LUHs to date.
So that includes the hours flown by the aircraft that had accidents also. It's basically all 30. The others are just now gone, but there were also hours flown with some airframes in Italy to test and evaluate other requirements that we had that they, as part of a project, did for us. Colonel Viljoen alluded to the fact that we've changed certain components and things that we wanted to change, like the seats, etc. And they had to go through a test phase while flying. But that includes all of that, all of those hours.
Paragraph 41, you indicate that the planned versus actual hours flown is shown in the table on page 102 of the bundle, 102, 103. Can you take the commissioners through that table?
Mr. Chair, yes. The table that you have here is an OSIS printout. There's an operational support information system. So the whole history and everything, the servicings and replacements and whatever happens to that airframe is registered on OSIS. Now, hours are the basis on which we work for servicings and other management issues. This is basically what I've explained earlier on, is that these are the OSIS hours on top, The captured hours are hours that the pilots at the squadrons are capturing in the authorization books and their logbooks. And you will see differences there, but they are working differently because on the OSIS hours, it's from engine start till engine cut, where your captured hours is from wheels lift to wheels on ground. So there are maintenance tasks also done where pilots are not involved, only technical people, where engines are run, and that's logged as OSIS hours on top. So that's where the difference comes in.
And what is the significance of these documents, General, that you have referred us to?
So like I've mentioned, Mr. Chair, is that it's a management tool. It's an operational support system, information system, and the whole history and everything that happens, the hours, the replacement of tires, etc., is logged on this. So this is also part. It talks to the servicing schedules, and this gives you warning of when a servicing should come up, when a component should be replaced, etc. So it's a whole computerized system, the management of your system, of your aircraft.
In paragraph 42, you refer to the maintenance man hours per aircraft tail number of the A109 fleet from delivery to 31 July 2013. Can you explain that before you refer us to the schedule attached as an extra PB6?
Same as with for the platforms itself, the maintenance hours are also registered as part of the system, and that will give us also, when we have our discussions and deliberations with the user groups, that will give us an insight of how well we are managing our systems. Are those hours not too many? Should we not implement other measures to get the hours down for changing servicings? So it's a whole big thing that we are working on, but the main factor is the hours that we have is the hours that the people are working on the aircraft. It's also registered and logged on the system.
On page 104, you are referring us to the schedule of the maintenance man hours. Can you just take us through the document?
Mr. Chair, let me just... as the aircraft were commissioned to the Air Force, those are the tail numbers on the left-hand side, and then you get the year. So those are the hours at the bottom, the total and the different airframes that they've worked on that airframe for that period. And so it continues, and you see it builds up as we continue. And in 2009, you will see that all the aircraft have been worked on. That was the time that we've received the aircraft. And then you will see some gaps at are the aircraft that most probably was in accidents, and they were not longer accommodated for on the system. But this gives you the total, and gives you this is a management tool on what hours you spend, and maybe with this you can also restructure your people working on the aircraft, etc., etc. So this is basically a management tool that gives you all the information on what is done on the aircraft, with the aircraft, by people working on it.
Now, in respect of, I think Admiral Green and General Malinga have spoken much about deterrence. Does it also relate to the helicopters?
Mr. Chair, I would think so. It's a more friendly environment because we are frequently collaterally used. But I can assure you that the people that are basically on the ground, and there are helicopters in the air with cannons, they will see this as a huge deterrent. I would think in the African situation that we experience now, a gunship or combat helicopter will be very, very effective. And that's for sure. It is a deterrent at this point in time.
In paragraph 43, you now dealing with the operating costs. You say the operating costs of the A109 LUH calculated on the basis of cost per hour flown are higher than anticipated due to the low hours flown. Can you just elaborate on that?
Our servicings, and it was referred to and mentioned by General Bain, we're talking about calendar-based servicings and hourly-based servicing. Our system runs on calendar-based servicing. So what it means is a period, after a period, you must service the aircraft. It doesn't matter whether you've flown any hours or not. So the more hours you've flown in that period, the more cost-effective that aircraft will be. And that is worked into a formula where under the line you've got your amount of hours divided into your cost, etc., and a lot of other factors. And that makes the difference. So the more you fly, the cheaper or more cost-effective. I shouldn't use it sounds like a Spar advert. The more cost-effective the system would be.
The non-utilization, optimal utilization of this LUH system, does it affect its life cycle in any way?
If, Mr. Chair, if I read you correctly, are you talking about a life cycle?
That's correct, General.
Sir, no, I wouldn't think so. What I would say is that you would get a more service out of the aircraft if you fly it continuously according to the schedules, and if you fly it optimally. But I don't think the life cycle, although it all depends on whether you are decommissioning the system and how long you keep. But I don't think it will have a very serious influence on that.
Paragraph 43, you continue to say that with its much more advanced systems, it is substantially more expensive than the Alouette 3 that it replaced. Can you just elaborate on that?
Mr. Chair, yes, because of the added systems, it's got two engines now, although the fuel consumption of the two engines are the same than the Alouette's one engine, because it's a more advanced machine, better technology. But we have got different systems that we have to service. There are computers in the system. There are the added capabilities that forms part of the expenses. So there's a lot more involvement. The capacity capability of this aircraft is far more advanced. So if you work the capability back, then actually you shouldn't say this. But taking the LO as it was, with basic dials, old instrument, and what we have now with the advanced computers, autopilots, to fly the IF and to operate certain systems, we can strap on other equipment, and that's part of the aircraft itself. It's fitted for certain other capabilities, and as we continue, we will get some of those capabilities if the budget allows. Then we can just sort of add it to the system, and that is why it's like that.
And you also indicate that the current resources available to the helicopter systems are insufficient to achieve full and sustainable operational status. Can you just elaborate on that, General?
Sir, Mr. Chair, yes, it's like I've tried to explain during the austerity measures that we would like to see that we get allocated budget for the system that will allow us to fully operate it to its optimum extent. But with the austerity measures, we have to plan, and then we are sort of concentrating, focusing on the requirement first before we continue with that. But we have got limitations there.
Does the issue of resources in any way affect your air and ground crews who uses this LUH system?
It does, sir, Mr. Chair. It's like people, in our case, older people. It's nice to buy a new car, and then you would like to operate it. Now, the same with pilots; they're not there because it was just a job for them. That's to me, it's a calling. You want to be in a defence force, you want to be a pilot. That's a dream, and you want to fulfil your dream. And you see people operate, and you would like to do the same. So, and you work as a team. That is one of the main things. We are a family, and we pull our technicians and everybody up with the pilots. That's basically operating it in the air. But it will be much better, and the morale will pick up if they fly more. But we don't have a problem with that. The people understand the situation, and they know it will get better.
Paragraph 44, you are referring the Commission to Annexure PB7, which indicates the cost per flying hour as approved by the National Treasury dated 5 June 2013. Can you take the commissioners through the document and its importance?
Mr. Chair, yes. This is a tariff approved by Treasury that we are working accordingly. That's also for management purposes, to be able to plan and budget and see where we can or how we must operate our systems. Now, I've explained the cost, how we work out the cost. Now, this is basically according to the inputs that we give through the engineers and the formula they work on, they get to this amount. Now, the very top one is the A109. The first amount you will see there, sir, is 18,800. That is what we are saying now is the systems will cost us for this period. And that's the dry cost. On the right-hand column, you will see the amount of fuel that it uses, and then we'll have to add that amount to the cost. That is what it's costing us, and if we do work for other government departments, we will charge that rate. We usually don't do work for private entities, but they've also worked out a rate for that. But if, like I've said, if we could operate a full system for 5 years, then you'll have better information to work on.
So are you saying in general that when you are involved with other governments in terms of the use of the LUH, they need to pay for the use thereof for whatever service you are providing?
Mr. Chair, it was mentioned by General Biden that all our employment is done and tasked by Chief Joint Operations. And normally when we do taskings for other departments, it's done through Joint Operations, and we are reimbursed for that.
What about your regional involvement? Is it for free?
The original?
The regional peacekeeping involvement, is it free of charge?
So it's also been run through Joint Ops. It all depends on the decisions made, but I would say, yes, we are, for that government it might be free, but Joint Ops pays us. They've got an operating budget.
Thanks, General. In paragraph 45, you indicate that from 2006 to December 2012, the total expenditure on the LUH fleet has been approximately 243 million rands. Can you elaborate on that?
So that's just a a total sum of, since we've started budgeting for the system and the money we've allocated to the system, that is the sum total of the money that we've spent up till that point.
And you further indicate that during this period from 2006 to December 2012, in excess of about, is it 11,000 or 17,000 hours were flown?
So here I'm alluding to the hours flown basically operationally by the pilot. Since, remember now, when you get a system, there are project money involved, so hours are deducted from that. But since the system is planning and budgeting for the LOH, this is the money that's been spent for over those hours flown.
You further indicate also that this is not a realistic reflection of the costs that you will incur in the future over a similar period, as warranties and guarantees were in force until 2010. Can you explain in detail what do you mean by that?
When you procure a new system, there are warranties of certain systems, dynamic systems, etc., that is basically given as part of the procurement amount. Now, as the system matures and gets older, the more servicings come in, bigger servicings come in, then that will have an influence on this. But this we also have basically in a formula that we plan on. The factor that is throwing it around a bit is the number of hours flown. I think that is where the crux comes in. If we could fully fly the system, then that will give us a better indication of what to expect in future.
So you indicate in paragraph 46 that in view of these factors, you are unable to provide an accurate prediction of what would be your expected costs per flying hour of the LUH in the future. Can you explain?
Mr. Chair, yes, we will almost get there. There could be some influences that takes it away from the real amount. But there are factors like exchange rate. There's a lot of factors involved here. So it's not, you can't give the exact amount. You can be within a certain percentage of it. But it's difficult. There are different factors. Like was explained earlier on, your aviation inflation runs between 10 and 15% per year. So that we must also take into account. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, General. And you conclude with the issue of representativity status. Issues were raised about this equipment or system. Is it gender friendly? Are women flying your equipment?
So yes, it is gender friendly. It's a very sleek machine. It is, I can just say, Mr. Chair, that our representativity rate is 84 to 16%. So it's basically more than what was expected or what is expected. But we have trained, remember now that all the people trained for helicopter flying goes through the system. We don't necessarily have the right amount of gender or females on the system now, but they go through into the other system. So, but it's one of our big responsibilities is to sort that out, to get that right, the representativity figure. So we're working very hard on it. I can just mention I have a lieutenant lady, black lady now, that I'm doing giving training, coming from 16 Squad, a technical lady. She's worked on the LOHs and RXs, but she's now advanced to the Rooivalk. So I'm giving her on-the-job training now. She came up to see how we operate as a PSSM at the higher levels where the servicings and all the plans are made. Now she goes back to the squadron, and then she can implement what she's learned here at a squad. But that is our big drive, is to sort that out. And with a new system, it's much easier than with the old system to get your figures correct.
Now, General, as you know, that some critics are saying that the contracts should be cancelled. In other words, the LUH should be cancelled. And I want to know from you, what is your comment in the event that the Commission then recommends the cancellation of the contract, including that of the LUH?
Mr. Chair, for a soldier it's difficult to answer because we don't understand what they're trying to tell us, but nevertheless, this contract with the LOH is needed because that is where we start with our chopper training. And the collateral value that it's adding to the public you can't go without it. Now, this was not specifically bought for the collateral value, but it forms an integral part of all the systems that we have in the Defence Force. Not necessarily the LOH itself, but in the Navy's case, the links. The LOH supports the Army. We have an obligation to look at the protection and safety of our troops. I'm referring to casualty evacuation, etc., etc. So it is much needed. The agility, the flexibility of a helicopter system goes without saying. People really, you can get anywhere where other people and not even baboons can come or get. So that is a very versatile piece of machinery. And because it's adding value throughout its life cycle, I would think it will be very irresponsible to cancel the contract. But I'll say again, this is an integral part of our other forces. They can't go without it. We protect them with that, we support them with that, and if you want to have a defense force, then you should have these systems.